Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He's speaking to us from Arizona. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Glad to be here, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Mark, do you have a special offer for our listeners?
We do at VRTrader.com, and it's 50% off any of our newsletters, and the code is 2021 half off. 2021 half off. Obviously, come the new year, we're going to have to change that. So it's 50% off any of the newsletters. You just enter it in the promo code section when you sign up, and you get that discount. Thank you for asking.
Mark, a little drier in Arizona, I assume, than it is in the Vancouver area. The city of Vancouver not heavily punished by extreme stormy weather, but it did cut the Trans-Canada Highway, the major route between Vancouver and the rest of Canada. All of the major rail lines out of the Port of Vancouver have been cut by heavy rains, the railway bridges washed out and so on. And Vancouver, for people who don't know, is the 47th busiest port in the world. It's number 7 in both North and South America, and it's number 1 in Canada and the busiest port in the Pacific Northwest when it comes to importing goods from Asia. So if that Christmas gift was going to be a little late because of supply chain problems, you might get it by Easter.
Yeah, this is just part and parcel of what's going on. You just wonder what's creating all these supply chain issues. Obviously, we can't accuse the Chinese government of creating another virus and intentionally trying to destroy the U.S. and Canada and the rest of the world and create supply and economic issues. We've got to blame Mother Nature now. Just decided that they want to create more supply chain issues. It's amazing. It's like, one thing on top of another. It's Murphy's Law here. What's going on?
Oh, here, I'll throw a little gasoline on the fire. Both the U.S. and Russian governments have experimented in the past in trying to control the weather. Maybe this is an experiment gone wrong. Or maybe it went right. We don't know.
Right. Yes, and there's been listen, we can talk about secret government space programs and extraterrestrials and all kinds of stuff, and we know there's a big cover-up going on there, and we know the military has some, in fact, they talked about it just a few weeks ago, but that secret space weapon that they were going to disclose that had been previously undisclosed, that's sitting up there floating around the Earth. And sure, and there's been talk for decades about weather control experiments and so forth. So, of course, it's a speculation, but, they're out there doing all these secret testing and programs, and they have advanced technology that is not being revealed. Yeah, they could be out there messing up the weather intentionally. Could be. Anything's possible. I mean, there's some of these laser beam technology that apparently, I've seen videos of it, and there's been a lot of discussion about it on the internet and other sources, that they beam some laser thing down to the Earth and it just blows things up, whether they're testing it or whether it's being used for military purposes in other places. But there's some type of laser beam technology that the military has control of that is up there. So we have some really wild stuff. I mean, it's hard to imagine that we can control the weather, but maybe we've made some advances that your speculation may not be too far off. I believe anything today with the cover-ups and things that are going on in the military and other places. So we'll see.
Well, so many people are claiming that the storm is the result of climate change, and they're saying humans can stop climate change. So yeah, it is human caused. Whether it was a space laser or the Chinese messing with the weather, or the Russians or the U.S. military. Or how about this? It's the at the end of fall in November on the Pacific Northwest, and we do get a lot of rain this time of year. maybe we just ended up with the perfect storm. Nobody had to help it. But like I said, from one end to the other, it can be natural, it could be man-made, or a little combination of both. Maybe aliens don't like it.
They've been trying to seed clouds forever, so there's a lot of stuff going on.
Oh.
So it's speculation, of course. So
yeah.
Who knows? But that's when you think about it, that's sort of the ultimate weapon. If they can really control and bring storms in or generate hurricanes. It's hard to imagine with all the power behind those type of storms. I mean, those are military weapons. They could forget bombs and all the kind of stuff. Just send a couple bad storms in and wipe out a country. That's an interesting theory about where military action may direct itself if that power really exists. So it's, I don't know, a lot of cool stuff out there. Amazing.
Right. So now that we definitely know there will be supply chain problems in Canada, it also means we can't get our agricultural exports over to Asia either. So this is going to have an effect for at least a year, perhaps two. Is there any way, if you're trading in the markets, that you can take a look at supply chains and what comes out of Asia or the Pacific Northwest and say, this is going to be in short supply, I better bet on it, because I know the prices will go up?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I just can't pinpoint it. I guess, because you've got agricultural production here and other places that may offset it, may not offset it, but you definitely want to consider some of the agricultural ETFs that cover, some of the main crops, I suppose. And, we had the semiconductor shortage for a while. I don't know if that's affected by this or not. It may be. There may be semiconductor stocks will do better. Of course, car production, could be delayed and prices can go up there. So it's just an inflationary event. I mean, and it takes time to filter through the system. I mean, there's a lot of talk out there about, is this inflation long lasting or is it temporary? The Federal Reserve down here, is talking about, Chairman Powell, I just think this is a temporary event. It'll be gone in a few months. So I'm not worried about raising interest rates and so forth and so on. So there's just a lot of poo-pooing about that the inflation is just a transitory situation, is not going to last. But then you have the event that you just described, and who knows what else could be coming that could exaggerate this and extend it. So it's inflationary, and what's going to happen? I mean, prices are just going to go higher for food and real estate and production of technology if they can't deliver the parts. And you're telling me if ships are backed up in the harbor, I mean, this is big stuff. So I guess we're going to have to look for more inflationary pressures. I mean, it's hard for me to gauge, Jim, about how much impact the storm has had, in terms of Canada and what it really means. But from that Trans-Canadian highway got washed out, we had talked about that. I mean, there's a lot of shit hitting the fan here, as they say, right?
Oh, I would say schist, but yeah. So, now taking a look at what's going on with the stock markets, rather choppy. Some people say toppy. Can the stock markets continue to be successful, especially considering just how much debt the U.S. government has found itself in? Our good friend of the show, Tim Cyclesman Wood, said since 2009, since Obama passed the Recovery Act, that was $800 billion, but President Trump passed a few multi-trillion-dollar bills, and now we have the infrastructure bill. And he said, well, since that time with Obama, the U.S. government, just in these aid packages, has added $7.6 trillion in debt. How long can that party continue?
It's a tough question. Indefinitely, if they continue to do stupid things, I don't have an answer for you except that the trend is your friend and will way extended, and it's difficult to be buying at these levels for the major indices, but there's nothing that says clearly yet that they've broken and are about to go down. I was sort of thinking, come early next year, perhaps people are waiting to sell stocks because they want to wait for the tax year to end, and they're delaying the sale of their taking big profits, and maybe January 1st things could possibly unfold and may see some selling pressure there. But that may only be a temporary event. I mean, if they're pumping money in there and there's supply chain issues, and I mean, who knows where all this could go? I mean, how high is high? Nobody really knows for sure. All I know is if you look at the technical charts, there's an expression called, reverting to the mean, which is like where all the big moving averages are, and we're so extended above that, that's what sort of causes crashes, where we get so extended that we just, the air comes out of the balloon and we come down big. So my guess is if we're going to get a big correction, it's maybe not for the inflationary reasons. Maybe China invades Taiwan, or maybe there's some another outlier event, whether it's a virus or there's some extra geocosmic event or something else that just the market just gives up and goes through a big corrective phase like we saw with the COVID in, March of 2020. I mean, nobody expected that at that time either. So my guess is if we get the correction which is needed, it'll probably come from some external event. And I don't know, I don't think Powell is going to be right that suddenly inflation is going to disappear and it's a temporary situation. It sounds like this is really embedded in the system and interest rates are still low, and that's driving people to buy homes and drive prices up there. And, of course, now we got the Christmas season, so there's going to be a lot of inflationary pressure between now and the end of the year. So to answer your question, I don't know when it's going to end. You got to wait for the signals. I mean, before we crashed last March, we knew the COVID story, but you didn't see it in the charts immediately. And then, but in early February, I actually predicted last year, I was at the World Outlook Conference in Vancouver, that I'm looking for a correction here. The market looks really toppy, and be careful. I thought we were only going to get like a 10 or 15% correction, which is on record, is what I actually said. It turned out to be like 30%. But usually you see it in the charts, you see it in the tape action, you see something that says, hey, something is underway here, and we're going down. It's usually difficult to gauge how much down is, just like it's tough to gauge how much up is, because people act out of emotion versus reason in both directions. But at the moment, I don't have that signal. All I have is we're way overbought. There's some numbers we need to pull back to. They're pumping money in the system. My guess is, even though I thought we could get a pullback by now, we may be just higher into year end and continue into new record highs in the major indices, despite the fact that we're up there. There's no solid, clear sell signal. It hasn't been triggered yet. It may come tomorrow, but I don't see it today.
If you haven't been in the market right now and you have some cash available, should you just wait now for that correction or crash before getting into it?
I'm more of a believer of dollar cost averaging if you're a long-term investor, because I'm not going to be able to pick the exact top or the exact bottom for you. And if you're long-term, you have X dollars, you put them in every month. And I should qualify and say I'm not an investment advisor, and I'm not, licensed to give investment advice or anything. I'm just a newsletter writer, educator, market commentator. But it's commonly known that, dollar cost averaging is has over the years been a pretty decent way to go if you're taking, a longer term time frame, because you're going to buy on whether you set it on a certain day of the week or whether it's the end of the month or the beginning of the month. There's different ways you could set up, but if you do it consistently for X dollars, you're going to be buying highs as well as lows. And over time, if the market is in a big uptrend, which it has been for the last 100 years, you'll overall be okay. So, dollar cost averaging, I think, is the answer, Jim, not to say sit and wait, because what if the market is another 5 or 10% higher by the end of the year, and then you say, gee, I could have had at least something in the market. So that's sort of I guess I'm a perennial optimist in the sense that history says it goes up, governments inflate prices, spend more money, print more money, and barring, even a communist takeover is not going to change it, because even the communists in China like making money and are involved in the stock market, and they buy stocks and they do all kinds of crazy things, raise money and take companies public. So, even on a big political socialistic communist change, the communists and socialists still like making money. So that means the stock prices will still go up no matter who takes over, the political systems. We've already learned that communists love making money, so you can't get any worse than that in terms of political control. I presume the Nazis, if they were in control, God forbid, but they probably want the stock market to go up too. So, you know what I mean? It's long term. I think you got to be, you got to be in the market. You just got to be in the market. If you're 20 years old, I wouldn't even be worrying about it. If you're 70, I guess you're a little more worried. And if you're going to put money in, it has to be less because your time frame is so short. But yeah, that's the best answer I can give you.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, I noticed Bitcoin was down substantially today. Is this a trend that we should be watching for in the cryptos, or was it just particular to Bitcoin?
Oh, well, Ethereum was weak. A lot of them were weak. I mean, there's like several thousand of them. I can pull up a sheet here and you can see some are up too. I mean, there's a lot of speculative smaller coins like Dogecoin and Shiba Inu and all kinds of fun stuff out there. You know, a lot of them are trading. Some are promoted and they go up regardless of what the Bitcoin or the big one, the Ethereum, is doing. The bottom line is, we were way up there. We had a nice big rally, and at some point we're going to get some type of correction or shakeout. It's funny with Bitcoin. Bitcoin had been underperforming a little bit relative to Ethereum, which are the two big names, to the extent that it didn't make new highs when Ethereum made new highs, but still did awfully well. But just on a technical basis, they're way up there. They needed a pullback, and we'll just have to watch the numbers here. I mean, I'm sort of in my big newsletter, VR Platinum, we're sort of flat. We jumped out of it because it looked like a little trading top came in. But long-termers say this is just a blip, and we're just going to continue higher over time. So as a trader, to me, it looks like you can buy it a little cheaper. And we've had some huge moves here. In the Bitcoin, we've already seen tremendous moves. From 4,000 or 5,000 a coin up to 68,000. So anything is possible in terms of volatility on the downside. I'm not that bearish on it, but we are in a correction here, so you got to watch it a little bit if you're looking for an entry point. But big picture, names like Ethereum and Bitcoin and a few of the other top names, XRP and so forth, are probably going to be buys. But you have to take, I think, a 5-year perspective with these, Jim. You can't trade them. I mean, the kids trade them on their phones, and there's a lot of these crypto platforms, and some of them are doing very well, and they trade 24/7, which we talked about. So there are little trading opportunities, but overall, I think we're early in the game. I don't think it's over yet by any stretch. Yes, you could have a U-shake. Look what Bitcoin did, was it 2019, it topped out around 20,000, went down to 3,000, then went all the way back up now to 68,000. I mean, why can't it pull back to 27 or 30,000 and then go to 100,000? I mean, it's a very volatile market, so you gotta have your crash helmets on and your seatbelts on when you're in this market. I mean, it's not the faint of heart. You're not buying General Motors. You're not buying, AT&T. You're not buying, a utility. This is what it is. But I think there is a place for it in one's portfolio, in terms of diversification based on just the theory that you want to participate in as many markets as you can, including the gold market or anything else. So long-winded response. I just think, it looks like a little top here, and it's hard to say how far it's going to go down. I'm watching it day to day, and if we see a trading bottom, we'll back in really quick.
What's going on with gold?
It's really funny. We talked about this last week. Gold and the dollar were both rallying together one day, which really messed people up because they're always thinking that these markets trade inversely. But the dollar has been strong, and that overall is not good for gold, even though I don't like tying markets together. Everybody's bullish on gold, and I have not been a big gold bull. We talked about this. I just, I thought we were going to get down to 1,500 this year, priced in U.S. dollars. We got down to 1,675. Now we rallied up couple $100. We went from 1675 to 1880. Again, I'm pricing in U.S. dollars. Some better in Canada and other countries that had weaker currencies. But we'll see. I mean, the bottom line with gold for me, and it's not my work. It's GATA.org, GATE.org. For 20 years, they've been analyzing a lot of data and interviewing a lot of players and pulling up a lot of research about how this market is heavily manipulated by the government, and the leasing of gold has been double and triple leased, and a lot of the gold that they say is there is not really there. And the bottom line is they've been looking to suppress the price of gold on a governmental level for decades. It all started, I guess, when Roosevelt forced the sale of, the return of gold coins years ago, and Nixon taking us off the gold standard in 71. I mean, all these crazy things have been going on. If gold was left to trade like a normal market, it'd probably be $10,000 an ounce now in silver would probably be a couple $100 an ounce. It makes governments look bad, Jim. I mean, gold's running. It means that people have lost faith in government, and I think the government is probably already nervous. The fact that cryptos have been running because many saw cryptos as an alternate to gold or as an alternate to government or to currency. So, it's just that they haven't been able to suppress the crypto market the way they've been able to suppress the gold market, and maybe they're going to try to do cryptos next now that they have futures trading on the cryptos, both in Canada and the U.S. They have these future contracts, and the way they were manipulating gold and silver in the U.S. was by, hitting bids on the contracts, even though there was nothing backing the bids. They couldn't deliver the actual commodity, but they were playing with the futures prices and try to drive them down or hold them at certain levels. And this has been documented over the years. I mean, this is just a lot of shenanigans going on. So, answering your question about the gold, I mean, if the manipulation and suppression continues, when is that going to stop, if at all? I know there was one of the nominees for the Federal Reserve. I forgot her name. They were trying to get her on the Federal Reserve. She was a big proponent of gold and getting the dollar backed by gold, and she got rejected by the U.S. Senate. And I apologize, I don't have her name in front of me, but if you start getting people like that on the Federal Reserve and they become supporters of gold, then the manipulation will stop, and you'll probably see it rise to levels that it really should be at. So we'll just have to watch it here. Technically we're in a seasonal time frame that you usually get a rally into February. So right here looked a little overbought to me. I'm actually flat right now, waiting for a trading entry point on the long side. Let's see if we get that, and whether it's a big trade up or just a small trade, we'll just have to see. But, I'm not sitting out there waiting for 3,000 or 10,000 gold so fast. If the evidence presents itself, then we'll talk about it on this interview.
I know you like to talk about geocosmic events. At the time we're speaking, which is November 18th, there's a scheduled lunar eclipse over most of North America. Does that have any effect on the markets, or is it just a cool thing to watch?
I believe it has to do with there's a full moon. Obviously this is tied to the full moon, and I'm a big believer that on all the cycles of the moon there could be and has been coincident impact on the planet and on the financial market. So I've seen tops on the moon. I've seen lows on the moon. Sometimes on the new moon. I've studied this for decades. This is not something that just came out of nowhere. If you chart it on a chart, if you put out all the lunar cycles, you will see a preponderance of times where markets change direction within a day or two of the lunar cycle. So there's science behind this. It's evidence. You can show it, and you can say, why does this happen? I don't know. Maybe people run amok on the full moon. They say emergency rooms are full of people on full moons, and crazy things happen. If there's gravitational forces, we know that the moon helps control the tides. It does control the tides on the Earth. So why couldn't it control the water in our bodies and our emotions and the way we act or react, and that those actions can translate into stock prices as well as any financial transaction. So definitely, when you say will it affect this market tomorrow, or has it already on the current cycle, we'll have to see. But you have to be aware that it is a force out there, and we're not immune to it. And meanwhile, we've got other interesting things going on. Apparently, according to the space science surveys that I track, there's another solar wind stream that's heading in our direction, and according to that, it's flowing from the south pole in the sun's atmosphere, and it's due to arrive November 21st, 22nd. So some of the NOAA forecasters say that they call co-rotating interaction, and it's a CIR, as we call it, traveling just ahead of the stream, which could spark geomagnetic activity and Arctic auroras and so forth. So it's a solar flare alert is what I'm saying. There's another one out there. I mean, I know keep talking about it, but I have seen some days where there's big solar activity and the markets are down. They don't talk about it on the financial news. They sort of think that anything happens outside of your living room has no impact on the market. So you've got the eclipse, you've got some solar wind coming our way, you've got the just interesting stuff. We also had some meteorite activity. It just passed us, by the way. They call it the Leonid meteor shower, and it just was over, but it was going on for the last couple of days. So there was some meteorite activity around the Earth, and it happened between the 16th and 17th of this month. So just interesting to watch. I don't think meteors necessarily are going to have any great impact. An asteroid obviously would. So that's just something we were also paying attention to. And for those of you who really want to do something wild, and this is probably going to get everybody to hang up when they hear this one, I just happened to be watching one of the network television shows. I don't know if it was the History Channel or it was on the one of the other nature channels, and it just was an interesting piece that was done on what they call the BFRO.net, which is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Now, I'm a real believer in this kind of stuff. As probably listeners already know, there's a lot of documentation, hundreds of sightings, something ongoing out there. But what interested me, they're actually doing Bigfoot field research expeditions, and you can actually join one of these things if you want to do something during the summer, which is different. You can go out there. They're having one in Vancouver, I believe, or on Vancouver Island, and there's one in Wyoming, so I suppose you can join one of these expeditions and go out there and have some fun and look for Bigfoot. So that's, by a time, I'd probably go out there and join the group and take my flashlight out and look around and see if I can find the big furry, creature. But, there's something, this is really, if you go to the website, bfro.net, you'll see it's very extensive in the research and organizing these expeditions. So just fun stuff. It keeps life interesting, let's say.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for calling.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as vrtrader.com. If you have any questions for Mark or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.